Yes. Good morning. Shame poor Lebang. She's got like sick children in the house and sick adults in the house and all kinds of shit going on over there. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Look, I'm opening up a hospital at this stage.
Are you going to open up your own hospital? Is that the plan? Are you going to open up the Lebang Khosana ward for those who are always perpetually sick thanks to children bringing home disease? That's what it's called, right?
That's exactly the name. You hit the nail on the head. Thank you.
That sucks. Well, while we're all complaining, I don't know why, but I'm not sleeping properly at the moment. It's like I can't decide how to sleep. This sounds ridiculous, right? I mean, I've spent a lot of years falling asleep at night. That's kind of what humans do. I don't know why, but I'm unable to find a comfortable position to sleep in at the moment. I don't know what's going on with me. It's like I roll around, then I'm on my stomach, then I'm on my side, then I'm moving this cushion under, and then there's this pillow. And I just know that this is bullshit because if I didn't have any pillows at all, I'd still have to sleep. And no, I mean, really, like if I had a shit bed, one of those foam mattresses, which I had as a kid, I didn't even use a pillow when I was a kid. I used to sleep flat. So I don't know what my problem is. It's like all
maybe go back to that.
Maybe I should, huh? Maybe I should go back to a foam mattress. No, I'm telling you, and no pillows, and see if that's not going to make me sleep properly again. Why are you shaking your head so vociferously? What's
because we have ergonomics now. We have fields of study for your problem. Like maybe you probably got a terrible pillow. Change your mattress. There's a good reason.
I got
crippling debt. Like I don't know.
No, it's none of those. I've got 3 different kinds of pillow.
You might be in love as well. That could be churning inside of you. You saw a fine specimen. And you're thinking to yourself, time to replicate.
You think that might be it?
It's possibility.
But that person would be in my mind right now, and I'm really struggling to think who in the world I would want to replicate my DNA with. I don't see any of those excuses, Bulelo. I don't know what the problem is. I think it's all psychosomatic. I really do. I think it's all in my head.
Maybe.
But
also, like, the weather's been a bit weird.
The weather has been a bit weird, but that's not an excuse. People sleep in good weather, bad weather. Ruth says I'm lacking magnesium. I don't know. I take those magnesium things. What do you call them? Those supplements. I'm okay with magnesium. No. Tracy says I need melatonin. See, everybody's like, these days we're all self-medicating.
So true.
Right? We all know what we need. It's ridiculous. Like suddenly we all have, have you got this? Have you got that? Because you buy it all at the pharmacy now, right? You just walk in there and just, I'll have 3 of those, 2 of those. You haven't seen a doctor. I'm working this out myself. That's all. Annette says weather is shit. Crap all summer. Now that is true, but I don't know if that's the reason I'm not sleeping properly. Ruv 1 says your body is getting old. That I'm willing to accept is true. Tiger says you got to get a temper pillow. Yeah, maybe. There we go.
What's your routine?
I don't
like
really
your pre-sleep routine. Like, are you still on your phone? Have you read a book? Is it like, are you giving yourself time to wind down?
Last night and the night before, I was reading a book before I went to sleep. So there are no screens. And I mean, yesterday I probably used my phone the least of any day that I've used it. So that blue light from the screen thing, that's not necessarily it. I mean, Carl says, Margot Robbie, you definitely want to do the Beast with 2 backs with her. Yeah, but I mean, I'd need to meet her first, right?
Yeah, that's true. When did you eat? That's also important. Shouldn't be eating 2 hours before you sleep. I'm saying
about 7-ish.
Well, when did you go to bed?
About 11-ish.
Maybe it's not that then.
No, anyway, I don't want everybody trying to figure this out because no one's going to know, right? Except
Matt Walker knows. No, I have a guy for you who knows. His name's Matt Walker, neuroscientist, probably
Really?
the leading sleep specialist in the world right now. So
Really?
neuroscience guy. Yeah. You can go and look him up. Matt Walker.
Walker.
Don't let the fact that he's a ginger put you off. Genius
Oh,
guy. Game changer.
Oof.
he's ginger, huh? So
Yeah.
no soul.
Yeah,
Vernon
yeah.
says, I'm better than you, Gareth. I can sleep. Yes, that's it. You are. I know. You are better than me. Okay, I got you. All right. So, Lebang, what are you going to do? Are you staying at home? Are you going to? Do you think it's COVID? What do you think's going on?
Like, to be honest with you, I haven't decided yet. What I do know is that the kids aren't going anywhere, so they are trapped in their separate rooms. As far as I'm concerned, I think I'll be okay, man. Like by 1, I would have pumped enough ginger tea to like get up and go. And it's a bit of a hectic week as well. So I don't really have the luxury of just sitting around. I have shit to do. So I'll make it work. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, the truest thing here is come 6 o'clock, doesn't matter how much I've slept or not, because Carl's right. He doesn't care and nobody does. Just don't drop the standard of the show. Of course. That's not going to happen. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I've got a list of responsibilities. And, for example, I mean, you're a parent, Lebang. So if your kids need you, it doesn't matter whether you slept really well or not, or you're feeling good or you're feeling bad. You still have to do those things, right?
Yeah, no, that's not an excuse. They're really not affected by how I feel. Like the show must go on, really, is the point.
Right. No, precisely. No, that hashtag nobody cares. Remember we started that last year? Nobody cares. Still right as rain. That's still the best hashtag. That's still the thing that we need to know. All right. So lots of other things people are suggesting here, but we'll leave those for the moment because we don't want to spend the whole morning talking about ways to, I don't know, affect a better sleep or whatever. So there's other stuff in the news that we need to pay attention to this morning. And a lot of people are saying that since they're back in the working year now, and it's been a month, and today's already the 1st of February in a brand new year, that now they may be filling their cars up and realizing for the first time, wow, petrol price is insane.
Yeah.
And so is the diesel price. And this is something important to pay attention to because the motoring industry is now starting to put out various things that, this is how you figure this shit out. This is why it's so much more expensive. This is how we break down the petrol price. I mean, I went and filled up yesterday. Hectic. Apparently, we are going to be hit by another hefty petrol and diesel price increase this February. That's according to info released from the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. According to a statement from them, all grades of petrol will increase by 53 cents a litre, diesel by 80 cents a litre. And these increases will push the price of 95 unleaded petrol to 19 Rand 42 at the coast, 20 Rand 14 inland. Unleaded will now cost 19.89 at the pump.
What?
And these prices effective from Wednesday the 2nd, that's tomorrow. So it's going up. So what are you going to do? What, you're just not going to
get a smaller car?
Not going to go anywhere?
So we need to fill up tonight, basically. Or else we're screwed.
Well, you know what's going to happen now is you're going to have those queues at the petrol stations. And I always look at them and go, is it worth, because you're going to save like 30, 40 Rand?
Hey, man, that's a lot of 30, 40 Rands for them.
So you queue up for what, 15, 20 minutes sometimes? Don't know. Sometimes your time... Do you ever do a calculation?
Your time is worth more.
Yeah, like, for example, when you see a queue at the, I don't know, the licensing department or something, where there's always a long queue. And you think, I think my time is worth more than this today. There'll be a day where I'll come, where I'm willing to do this, but it's not today. I always do a little calculation in my head. So I go, okay, what do I think my hourly rate is? And I've got a number in my head of what I think my hourly rate is. And if I can see something is going to take me more than an hour, could I spend that time better either using up that fee or earning that fee? Like if it's a work day, I could be earning that fee rather than spending it and wasting it in this queue. And then I do a quick, okay, I think maybe the calculation says I should get the hell out of here. Then I'll leave. But if the calculation is like, nah, it's this is worth your time stand there and get it over and done with. Then I'll get it done. But it's a very arbitrary. It's not exactly. This is not an exact science. I don't have a perfect formula. Some days it also depends on how you're feeling.
Yeah, I think like that's like a true test of your ability to hustle, right? Like if you can like maneuver your way to the front, especially in these like home affairs lines. Like if you know a guy, I remember a few weeks ago, just after the new year, I had gone to the hospital where I gave birth to my first daughter, and I had to go and like get a form that'll allow me to get her birth certificate. And that line was ridiculous. First of all, there's only one day a week where moms can actually go and get that form. And after that, you've only got 30 days to then go to the Home Affairs and get the birth certificate. So I think I was in that line from around 10 till around 3 p.m. But I was watching the other ladies around me like maneuver their way and hustle to the front. It was that's the true science. It was so impressive. Like, yeah, please can you just hold my spot? Then they'd go and like talk to the security, jiggy they're in front. It's unfair, sure, but I was just sitting there like impressed because I'd already planned like my whole day it's gonna be there. So if you know, you know. If you know the right people, then you know you won't have to apply that science because either way you'll get to the front.
Well, a lot of people are saying you should just run like Bolelo does because that's much more sensible. Plus, you'll be fit.
Just get smaller. Like I'm also sick and tired of South Africans whinging. Get smaller cars. Like it's in Europe. Nobody has an SUV, by the way. Like
Carl says, Bolelo, you're stupid. Buying a smaller car won't make the fuel cheaper. But a smaller car uses less fuel, right?
No, I think he's being facetious. But like I don't know if you know this, but I know the CEO of an airline in Europe who drives a Peugeot. Like, get smaller cars. Stop whinging. Get smaller cars.
Yeah, well, when you've got 5 children, I mean,
don't have 5 children. Don't have 5 children. Sorry, you can't.
Don't have 5
children. Have it both ways.
So you don't have a big car. That's the logic.
Yeah.
Don't have 5 kids. You can stop the need for a big car by not having 5 kids. So you can't have it both ways.
Lebang, Bolelo wants you to just take your last 2 kids and put them back in the womb, you know?
No, don't whinge. Then don't whinge. Yeah. So sorry, you can't have 5 kids and a big car and whinge. No 5 kids, small car, or don't whinge. Pick an option. Like you can't have it all in life. So that's we don't play all. That's not grown up life. You know what I mean?
All right. I need to ask you guys this because this came up in a conversation I had yesterday. What is the difference between compassion, sympathy, and empathy? And don't answer this if you think you know the answer. Answer it if you know the answer.
But is this one of those where it's been thought about by like a philosopher at Oxford, or is this just somebody who's got a blog who's come out with it?
No. Bolelo, you don't have to be a philosopher at Oxford to come up with the right answer here. You could just be someone who's writing a blog. And these days, frankly, I'm less impressed with a philosopher at Oxford than I am with some of the stuff you'll read on the internet.
Well, I mean, the distinction's probably so small.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you want to try?
I'll give it a go. I'll start backwards though. Empathy is like what my little brother has. He just can't help but see the good in every single person, and therefore whatever situation they're going through, he just absorbs that from them and like puts himself on that level so that they don't have to sort of bear that burden by themselves. Sympathy is like feeling sorry for someone and sort of relating to their situation, but having like choosing whether or not I want to relate or whether or not I care enough. Compassion, I think, is sympathy, but a step back, like from a distance, like, oh, sorry, man, but not really actioning it.
Right.
I think that's my thoughts. Yeah.
I think you probably are closer to it than you think. I mean, that's a fairly decent definition. So empathy is the most emotional of all of these, and it's the most it's the one that you have to make the biggest sacrifice if you want to truly get into someone else's position, right? Empathy is the one where you have the ability to actually understand and share the feelings of another. So if you can imagine a cartoon where the one person is busy telling the other person with a sad face what's going on in their life, and they're like, oh, it's so terrible, then the person who's listening can actually see that sad face as well and is also crying. That's empathy. So empathy is like this capacity to understand and feel what another person is feeling. That's a very difficult thing to say. You can't say I empathize with you if you haven't lost a parent and someone's just lost their parent. You can't say you empathize. Understand?
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so empathy is that's the biggest kind of emotional sacrifice stroke situation you can get yourself into. Then sympathy is like, well, I have feelings of pity and sorrow for your misfortune. So it could be at a distance. It could be like, I have sympathy for the people who experienced that flood, or who lost someone in the flood. I don't necessarily know them personally. I don't understand. I don't have the same feelings, but I sympathize with them. So sympathy is like at an arm's length. It's more, I feel sorry for you because I can only imagine how it feels. Now, that's a step or two back from empathy, right? And sympathy is probably what most of the time you feel when you hear a sad story. You're like, oh, my heart goes out to those people, right? Then you get compassion. Now, compassion is supposedly the lightest touch of the three. And compassion is sympathetic pity and concern or concern for the suffering or misfortune of others. But it doesn't necessarily involve you having to put yourself in their shoes. So compassion is, again, like, oh, that's terrible. I heard this horrible thing happened. Must be really awful. Must be shit, But again, you're not getting involved. There's virtually no having to put yourself in those people's shoes. Sympathy is like, I can only imagine how it feels to be in your shoes. Empathy is like, I'm in your shoes. Got it?
Yeah, seems legit.
Are we good on those definitions?
Yeah. So now, should we be changing compassionate leave? If those definitions are true, it shouldn't be called compassionate leave unless I heard you wrong.
Probably. Are you saying it should
sympathetic
change?
Leave?
Yes, that's probably what it should be. But the problem is that because the words sympathy and empathy contain that pathy, a lot of people hear the word pathetic rather than hear the word,
pathological.
Pathology. So it also gets complicated from that point of view. But we have to all be honest about something too. It's like, it's very hard to have proper empathy. You have to be able to actually understand 100% what someone's going through to be truly empathetic. And people say, I'm an empath. That you're probably not. Probably not.
No. Empaths don't go around calling themselves empaths. It's
right.
Number one.
Yeah,
it's not a nice thing to be an empath. It's actually very, very difficult.
It is.
Like, it's I can almost say it's sucky to sit there and have to suck in all this person's energy, and then suddenly you feel like that, and then now it's just a lot of work. It's not cool at all.
And which one's the one if you really want to help people? Because I didn't quite get from the definitions, because there are people who feel the emotion, but they also stay there, and actually you make the other person's situation worse. If somebody is miserable and you feel their misery and get miserable yourself, it's a gemors, as we say in South Africa.
So acting on it is completely different to how you feel about something.
Yeah.
So you could be compassionate and act on it, like, I'm so sorry to hear about your gran. Here's 5 rand. or you could act on sympathy. You could be like, come here, give me a hug. I'm sure you feel like absolute shit. I can only imagine how you're feeling. I don't know how you're feeling because I haven't been in that situation, but give me a hug. That's acting on it, sympathy. And then acting on empathy would be like, wah, 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 let's all both cry together, and then we'll go for lunch and let's see if we can feel better, and then we'll, maybe we'll have sex, and then I'll make you feel better there too, and then I'll spend the week, and I'll help you plan the funeral.
That's very loaded.
See, you can tell I'm not good at any of these, right?
Yeah.
That last one's incredible. Like, maybe we'll have sex. I mean, we'll see where it goes.
Right.
But it is tough. On a very serious note, as somebody who, I don't think I'm a very compassionate or empathetic person.
No.
It is very, very tough to genuinely help people, especially when they're in the mire. For me, I don't know what to do because I'm just like, well, solve it. Well, but that's not the grown-up way to do it. People need help.
No, you do need to. And I used to be a lot more like you, and I've had to learn that there are appropriate responses, and it is, otherwise you end up, another word with path in it, you end up sounding like a sociopath, or even worse, a psychopath, if you have no empathy or no sympathy or no compassion in any given situation. Then so Michael gives a good definition here too. Michael says empathy is when you cannot mind your own business because it's something that's you're called to feel something that is equivalent to the feeling that other person is going through. Sympathy, when you won't mind your own business. And it sounds cold here, but what he's doing is he's defining it from the other side, not from, he's saying this is your response. Sympathy, when you won't mind your own business because you do want to extend sympathy. Compassion is when you choose to mind your own business. So you can be compassionate without having to actually get involved in that person's life. And I like those definitions too. And then there's apathy, obviously, which means, I don't care. I just don't care at all. And then beyond apathy, you get the sociopathy and then psychopathy. And I suppose we should write those down on a scale then. And then you can look at the scale and you can see any situation that occurs in your life. And you can decide, all right, I'm going to respond with a maximum amount of investment in trying to help solve this situation because I feel what that person feels, empathy. At the other end, you can go, I don't care what that person feels, and I'm actively not going to be helpful to them at all. In fact, I don't feel like I should give or do anything for them. They should be at work. They should be doing what I want them to do. Who the hell do they think they are with their stupid feelings? That's obviously psychopathy or sociopathy, depending on where the result is. And then somewhere in the middle is apathy. So figure it out for yourself. I feel like compassion is appropriate a lot of the time. And some people invest too much and get too involved in other people's stuff. And obviously there are those cruel people who don't have even, a bit of compassion. They're like, I don't really care. I'm not interested in those people. I just thought it was interesting because these days we put such an emphasis on people who are involved in other people's lives and who express a care for other people. We hear like governments, for example, that care about your children. We want your children to be safe at school during coronavirus, but they don't really care about your kids. At best, they're compassionate, but most of the time they're probably apathetic because no one cares about your kids as much as you do, Lebang, right?
Yeah, 100%. But there's something you said now, Gareth, that like made me think a little bit about how you used to respond like Mbulelo does, which is like cold. And as you've grown, you've kind of taught yourself, or you've had to learn that there is a way. I wonder if, that was out of, noticing that, okay, I need to maybe improve this one thing that maybe isn't my strongest point, or maybe, because I sometimes wonder about Mbulelo, whether this is just going to be who he is until, or maybe something hectic's going to happen in his life where he realizes, oh shit, let me actually just try something. I'm curious to see.
Well, I don't extend myself to everybody. I think there is an element to it being like overplayed. I think I come from a super empathetic family. Yeah, but like there's also, everybody wants your help. And they're a mess. And it's like there are certain people where I've seen this pattern before. You're unhelpable. Like I come from a home of empathy because my mom, fortunately, is a professional in this. I'm always worried about, can we solve the situation? I don't really care about how you feel about it. You can worry about that afterwards. I'm about, okay, let me hear your story. Can we solve it? And also what's important for me, do you want to solve it? Because it's not actually important where you are, So it comes off a little cold, but I come from a certain school of thinking about trauma and things like this, having had the fortune of somebody who worked for 20 years in war zones, and she's kind of broken it down for me my whole life in every situation. So we must be very careful, because often people that are soft want you to stay there with them, and it helps nobody. And I know it feels good. It's like, oh, we're all warm together. It does nothing. And ultimately, you need those people in some circumstances, but ultimately the situation has to be solved for both people's sake. And I know people who love it. They love to feel with others.
They wallow in the feelings, and they love other people to give them that attention. And it's that can be very, very damaging, because in the long run, nobody's moving forward. Just to go back to Lebang's question. So, I mean, I had to learn about these things because I just sounded like a nutcase. I sounded like a terrible person. And I'm not a terrible person. I don't believe I'm a terrible person. I don't go around completely, dismissing the feelings of others. But certainly I used to be like that. I used to think, who cares what you feel about this? It doesn't make any difference. The sun's going to rise the same way tomorrow, and it'll set the same way without or with your feelings. Nobody cares. #, right? But I think, maybe there's this point that is being made by Tembisa that again, we have to just go over it one more time, because Tembisa is not understanding it. Get an expert to break these down. I don't believe that I can't have empathy for someone who has cancer just because I never experienced it. Yeah, but Tembisa, it's not about the cancer. It's about the fact that that person is going through in their head that their life is going to maybe end. Maybe they're in stage 4, and they've been thinking about death every single day. Now, I'm sorry, you're not. There's just no way you're thinking about death every single day. You can't have empathy for that person. You can have sympathy for them. But try as you may, you are not an empath with them. You're a sympath with them. You're a simpatico, as the Italians would say. So it's just, you have to learn some behavior so you don't sound like a complete nutcase. In respect to people like Bulelo and I, but also these people who are constantly pouring out their hearts and everything. They're wallowing in their emotions, and they're drawing other people into their emotions. That's just as bad on the other end of the scale. Those people need to learn to be a little bit more apathetic sometimes, because otherwise, especially in a world where the news is 24/7 and there are tragedies every day all over the world, you're just going to be emotionally depleted by like 9:30 in the morning. If you allow yourself to get, to be sympathetic to everyone. Sure, a bit of compassion goes a long way. I'm compassionate with the people who are suffering all over the world. But if you're actually sympathetic, it means you're spending and devoting a huge amount of time and energy to people who you don't even know. You're going to
Amen.
You're going to run out of power very soon. Your Dr. Hanan said it. You have coins in the day, right? You can only spend 100 coins a day. If you are reserving 50 coins a day for sympathizing with the feelings of others, as opposed to just having compassion at an arm's length, you're going to run out of coins very quickly. You're going to have none for yourself, for your kids, for your family, for your work, for all the things that you have to do. And you've got to spend those coins carefully. And I'm just saying that there's this happy medium. And some occasions do not require your compassion. Like, you know what? There may be a terrible landslide somewhere in some island nation that we don't know about. Like there was that huge volcano that exploded in, what was the place called? Not Vanuatu or Togo, wasn't it? No, not Togo. Tonga, thank you. There was that volcano in Tonga that exploded. And it made a whole bunch of people homeless, a lot of people who drowned. Awful, awful story. But think about this, 100 years ago, you wouldn't have known about that. And unless someone had been sailing around there and came back with the news. Now, for you to sit here and I'm going to pray for the people of Tonga, and it's going to take up 3/4 of my day. And oh my God, it's so sad what happened there. And that volcano, it's a symptom of the earth's cruelty, and nature's just so. The fact that I've even just said those lines is such a complete waste of time, not only to the people of Tonga, who could care less for our supposed sympathy this morning, but also because we can't do anything to help solve the problem practically, and it's none of our business, frankly. So maybe a little apathy there is actually the best way to go, even though it makes you sound like a shit. It saves you. It reserves some of your energy for things that you'll have to care about today, like, frankly, the petrol price, you know?
Yeah. I just think like just balance. Find a way to balance it so that, like you're saying, you don't end up giving all of your coins to something you ultimately can't do anything about. But it doesn't hurt to spend 10 seconds just saying, "Oh man, there was a flood in Tonga, man. Hope they'll be okay." Done. Then you keep it moving. I don't think you've lost coins by sharing a thought for them. You know, it's not like you're on your knees and you're committing to something. But definitely the problem is we end up, you know, putting so much of our coins in them that we end up with none for ourselves. And that's when it gets problematic and toxic. And the people that we give our coins to sometimes can see that and they go, oh, so I just need to call this person and tell them all my problems. And then we can just sit here and wallow for 3 hours. Bet. And they'll keep doing that. So you've also got a responsibility to stop and say, hey, dude, just stop with the calls and just get your shit together. Like, you know?
100% right. And you know, Lebang, there are more people who will be calling you in that situation than me and Bulelo, because we've given off this very clear signal that we are not going to be, oh, where? We'll sit and talk to you for hours. We want to know all about how you feel about this. Whereas you, because you're a more compassionate person, you're going to have people trying to leverage you way more than we will.
I do.
Like you'll walk into my office and you'll know straight away, like, this is not the guy I'm going to talk to about my, daughter's shitty matric results.
Ever.
Like, also, if there's one truth that I know, most people don't want to be helped.
What do you mean?
Like, most people love the fact that they're in like a little bit of mire all the time. And there are these habitual offenders. I see them around me all the time. So I'm not wasting my time on that. Like, in other words, you can only help somebody who wants to.
So the drama in their life is getting them attention. They don't want the problem solved because then the attention stops.
Exactly. And also solving it, like also getting more disciplined and getting things in line is bloody hard. Like there's just that downright fact that your repeated behavior becomes your character. Because at some stage, if you're always the drama person, we've got to address your character. And that's hard because people take that personally. So again, for me, that's why I try and keep it moving. Like, if I don't know you and I spot certain behaviors, I'm like, I've seen you. I know this. Let's not do this. Don't waste my time. People in my inner circle, they would have to tell you how we roll, but we deal with character stuff as they do with me. Right. So it's tough, man. It's tough. Just be careful.
We're going to say hi to Jaco Voigt, who, of course, is the host of Unbundled, and he's also the CEO of Catalytic. We'll speak to him about all kinds of things. We just can catch up and see what he's got planned for Unbundled this year, but also go through a couple of the news headlines because, again, there are stories. I saw it again last night, and I don't understand why I'm so upset by this so many years later, but this upsets me. And I'm not a compassionate person for people I don't know. I don't know anyone who was affected personally here, but this story just annoys the hell out of me. It was in the news last night again. Anyone who's listened to the show over the last 7 years knows how furious I get when you mention life estimani and those mentally vulnerable people who were allowed to starve to death. You remember that story? Because the Gauteng Department of Health just put them in the care of people who didn't care about them. I don't know why. I hear that story, I just get furious. And it's weird that I get furious about that, but like a friend of mine who's just gone through a breakup can't come and talk to me about the breakup because I don't care enough. But it just drives me up the wall that there's no accountability being had there. And they had some woman yesterday with the judge going through these hearings, and effectively the prosecutor was busy saying to this woman, you are the deputy director of Life Esdimeni, and you didn't bother to check that the people who you're putting into, the people whose care you were putting these mentally vulnerable people into, that they were even trained. And this woman's like, yeah, well, time was of the essence and our meeting was coming to a close and I didn't really have a chance to find out. And now there are all these people who are dead. over 100 people died. And this woman is like, well, we didn't have time in the meeting. I'm like, yes, that makes me angry. Get so angry about that story. You imagine these people who didn't know what was going on around them. That for all kinds of reasons, maybe they're intellectually disabled, maybe they were severely compromised in terms of their mental health. They just hadn't been looked after. They'd had terrible traumatic experiences, whatever. Their families couldn't look after them. So they were put in the care of the state. And what does the state do? Screws them over completely. That story just makes me furious. And I saw it again on the news last night, and I was like, God damn it. Don't have any answers for this thing. And nobody's standing up and taking responsibility. I mean, remember, there was the Gauteng MEC for health at the time. The Judge Digang Moseneke held those very important hearings about 3 years ago. And we never really got anybody in jail. Someone's got to go to jail for this thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Jeez.
Starving people to death just because they didn't know how to say, help me. Yo. Anyway,
Crazy.
For that to be happening in this day and age, that is properly outrageous. All right. We got lots to talk about here this morning in the headlines, but let's welcome Jaco. Hey, Jaco, what's happening, man? You good? You good?
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah, good, very good.
Are you in
morning,
the office?
Good morning.
Good morning.
No, I'm at home. No, I'm at home still.
Are you coming in to do your show live this morning?
Yeah, I'm coming in. Yeah, as soon as we're done.
Awesome. So we were talking about like compassion and empathy and sympathy and all of this stuff. Do you feel like because you're the boss of a business that you're required to have empathy sometimes, or sympathy, or certainly compassion? And sometimes you really have to dig deep for this stuff because people bring you their problems because they know that you're the boss and you can solve them.
Well, that's off to a banging start there, Gareth. Yeah, I think. Well, when you spoke about compassion, I was going to refer back to Unbundled last week, but me and him both didn't have water for different periods of time, and then the minute his water came back on, he said, "Yeah, he doesn't really care about me."
Yeah, exactly.
I had 2 days longer without water, so I think within the Cliff Central team, the compassion doesn't run that deep.
No.
But yeah, I think. It's stuff that you and I talk about it when we see each other. I think that, and it's something that I think I grapple with. That I was actually thinking about it now this morning. That you try the concept of accountability is something that's very difficult for people to grasp or make. Not because they don't understand it. I think because they don't want to, and I think sometimes when the consequences come, then we expect it to show compassion. But at the end of the day, there's hard realities and there's results, and the results typically tend to be black and white. It doesn't tend to be emotional.
Yeah. You just said something that's so true, and I know Mbulelo's going to love this, and you and he laugh about this stuff all the time with a complete lack of compassion. I've heard you two talking to each other, and I'm talking about a lack of compassion for each other.
At the moment, but anyway, side note.
But you said something really interesting there. You're like, sometimes because people don't have a sense of personal responsibility or accountability, when things then go wrong in their life, they think that everybody is required to give them compassion, that's not real compassion. Like if you've totally fucked up, if I've fucked up badly, if I've made terrible mistakes, made bad choices, it's not right for me to then expect everyone else to give me compassion in response to what I should, to me having made better choices, or me also learning a lesson. Like if you give me too much compassion after I've made terrible decisions and I've taken no responsibility, then all you're doing is reinforcing bad behavior. Because I think, if I make a good or bad decision, these people are going to be compassionate with me anyway. So I can't really screw this up. All I can do is stumble in the dark. And if I win, great. If I lose, I'll get compassion. It's fantastic.
remember when you and I saw each other in the beginning of the year, I read over December where they're saying that the culture of your organization is determined by the worst behavior you'll tolerate in the organization. Right. So it's not all the rah-rah stuff and the feel-good stuff or whatever. It's whatever the worst behavior is that you'll tolerate. And I think that sometimes, when we tend to sit on the other side of the table or whatever, where you can come across as being, very uncompassionate or hardcore or I don't know what do you call it, feelingless or whatever. Yeah. At the end of the day, the pressure and the responsibility in terms of delivering a result, it's got to sit with somebody.
There was also a conversation that Jaco and I had, which I wanted to share on the show today, and that is this idea that if you are, I'm trying to remember exactly how it came up in our conversation because I thought it was such a breakthrough for me. It was like, I suddenly get it, and something was very clear, which hadn't been clear up to that moment, and it might have to do with this book that you were reading, but I was thinking about this discussion we had around how people don't like discomfort these days, especially in the developed world or in an economy like South Africa's, which is half and half. But in business or in personal lives, people do not like any sense of discomfort at all. If I'm hungry, I must eat. If I'm tired, I must sleep. If I'm feeling sad, someone must give me space to feel sad. If I'm feeling happy, everyone must be happy with me. And any sense of discomfort there, any ability to deal with suboptimal conditions is completely reduced in modern society. Whereas, in the past maybe, and for those people who are still big risk takers these days, and obviously they reap the rewards, but they also take a chance with those risks. There's this big divide between those people who will not accept any discomfort at all. They want life to be easy, and they get very upset when life isn't easy. And you get those people who go, well, life isn't easy, and I'm just going to accept that and take my chances. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, very much. I mean, it's something that, and I think, again, if you talk in the workplace where there's different generations, I think as they tend to be a bit more younger, that instant gratification. Everybody that I have a conversation with talks about that. It's instant gratification. We've got to, like, I want it now. I don't want to wait. And what was interesting to me in my famine of last week, when I didn't have water for the entire week, Anita and I decided to do a road trip. So we went to go see Gareth Dam. That's busy overflowing at the moment. So and that to me is
from no water from no water to the biggest dam in the country. That's
the reality. So I think in the city we tend to become soft because we've got all these luxuries and it's so easy. But when you expand your horizons a little bit and you understand, that's the way the world works. Regardless if you want to or not, it's maybe it gives you a little bit of a different perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm excited about what you've got on the agenda for Unbundled this year. You got some interesting guests. You had 2 great guests on last week, and I could hear like there was a huge amount of energy on the show. What kinds of things do you want to explore on Unbundled in the next couple of episodes?
Gareth, just before you go, before we talk about, let's just talk about the past quickly. So that whirlwind of what was my guest last week. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, we go for a quick coffee at Motherland, mm-hmm. And apparently, when you drop your polo's key in the toilet, it tends to be quite an expensive exercise. So your Motherland, I'm gonna have to wear a mask today when I go there. It was quite.
What happened?
Yeah, one of the one of the ladies, not the 2 that was in the studio with me, but one that was with him. She dropped her polo key in the toilet at Motherland.
Oh my God! And what happened?
So it was quite funny. Apparently,
how do you get it out?
Well, apparently she's had a experience not similar to the toilet incident, but she knew that key for a polo is about $8,000 apparently. So she was quite motivated to sort it out. So and it looks like the people at Motherland also quite geared for it. So yeah, one of the people there just proceeded to. She had a glove. She stuck her hand on the toilet. She took the key out. So
Oh wow!
it was
my God!
How did it get in there in the first
I'll
place?
be wearing a mask. What can I say?
Exactly, Lebang. I mean, how many people are dropping?
I was trying to.
How many people drop keys into toilets? That this is something that goes on there all the time, and they're we know how to deal with this. Don't worry, I've got the glove. Let's go.
Get the glove.
So I heard that just after I got my coffee, so I think my timing was off a bit because I suspect that maybe the glove that retrieved the key might have made my coffee. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm still alive, so it's all good.
Jeez, unbelievable.
Yikes.
All right, so what else have you got coming up on the show? People,
it's quite an episode.
Yeah.
Gareth, so I think from a technology perspective, we're gonna power on with some very interesting vendors around specifically security and where your data resides and all of those kind of things. So we're doing episode 27 of the technology component of Catalytic. So it's grown quite a bit. And we've got some firewall vendors lined up, some hardware, like servers, those kind of things. We focus a lot on securing your data, which is something that we cannot get that message out enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the boost component, I think we've done 6 or 7 of them now, where we bring any kind of small business that wants to come and let their voice be heard. They normally send queries to contact@cliffcentral.com, and then from there we just pick. But yeah, we've had such lovely guests, and I think that's starting to grow quite nicely. So we're just going to keep on pumping it hard. As we've said many times before, we believe that small business is the engine of the economy. So whatever we can do to give small business a platform to be more successful, we're gonna try our best to make a contribution there. Well, so that's what's it for us. And then I think from the tech show perspective, what we're also looking to do is maybe inviting some of our customers on as guests, so that we can almost share the real life stories around, because we're obviously doing, let's call it, thought leadership and some education,
right.
But then at some point in time, we're gonna get some of our customers on the show where they can say how they experience technology in their business and what it's done for them, etc.
I'm going to let you get on your way to the studio, because you've got a live show just now, and you'll be able to hear Catalytic CEO Jaco Voigt live on Unbundled today. Don't miss it on cliffcentral.com this very morning. Jaco, thanks for joining us. And by the way, if you have a small business and you want to be featured and you want some free advertising, you want a bit of a leg up, and you want to maybe talk about the tech backbone of your business and precisely what your challenges are there, then this is a show that you need to be on. Just send us an email, no matter what your business is, contact@cliffcentral.com, and we'll see if we can't give you some help and some free airtime. Jaco will be on live this morning on cliffcentral.com. Don't miss it. Very, very cool. It's always good to check in with him. Yeah, we have these conversations. Jaco comes in after his show, and then we sit in the office there and we talk for like half an hour. Sometimes you don't even realize it, and you've been talking for more than that. And we have to both get on with work in the morning, but we're having a really interesting conversation. I love it. He's one of those people who's always reading, always learning. He's dealt with some very tricky situations, so he's got some interesting perspectives on things, and I urge you to listen to the show. It's really good. Very, very interesting stuff. And he and Mbulelo are often giving each other shit, so that's also fun.
Piece of work,
Just
Jaco.
keep your car keys away from him.
Yeah, he'll drop them in the toilet. Although, let's be fair, it wasn't him who dropped them in the toilet, but still.
Sure. But, he was involved. So, no, thank you. I'm hiding my keys. If Jaco invites me to coffee, I think I'll just say no.
Uber or just Uber there, just to be safe.
For safety.
So I don't know if you saw this story. It kind of flew under the radar, but former Finance Minister Tito Mboweni has resigned from Parliament, and therefore he is not in the ANC anymore in Parliament. He had been a member of Water and Sanitation Portfolio Committee since August. Mboweni handed in his resignation as an MP to the Speaker. He's also been drawing a salary as a member of the National Assembly, but now will not be anymore. And the ANC now have to replace him with a member from the lists. He was released from his position as Finance Minister in August last year when he was reshuffled in the cabinet. But he said to the president, I don't want to be in the cabinet anymore. He was replaced by Enoch Godongwana, who, of course, has to do a budget this month. It's February. And Mboweni, who's also known for his love of cooking on social media, will not be retiring entirely and has revealed that he has a job or two lined up. He also joins another businessman turned politician, Herman Mashaba, who on Monday also resigned from the public office of Joburg City Councillor. Now, Herman Mashaba's action essay, I have to tell you, it does look like Cope repeating itself there, doesn't it? And we'll talk with Pumi about this on Thursday because it's something that we've got to look at. But Action SA is now the two people we've spoken to on this show who are the most prominent members of Action SA, Herman Mashaba and Makosi Khoza, are both no longer in the party. And remember, the elections were only, 3-4 months ago? 3 months ago.
No.
So what bullshit is this? All those people who voted Action SA now are feeling like I felt that year when I voted for Cope, right?
I kind of feel betrayed. I kind of feel like let down. The only reason why I was leaning towards Action SA was because of Herman Mashaba. He made it seem like he's the guy that's gonna save us, and don't worry, I've got everybody. Blah 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 blah. I was getting like all my WhatsApp groups for the neighborhood were blowing up, so I was like, finally. So if he's left, where does that leave us?
So, as the Komlades would say, let's just be categorically clear. Has Mboweni left Parliament, or has he left the African National Congress? Because those are the same thing and not the same thing at the same time. Has he given up his ANC status as well?
He has not given up his card-carrying membership of the ANC.
Okay.
He left Parliament. Now, the state is no longer paying him. So no tax money is going to him anymore.
Yeah, he's having way too much fun on Twitter. Like every single night, he's cooking for us, showing us what he's cooking, how he's cooking it, how terrible it came out, and repeat. Like,
does he still own?
Brings him joy now.
And the weed farms? Well, wasn't he getting quite heavily into that?
He's got a place in Mahuba's Kloof, and he used to grow avos there, but I don't know how successful that was. Now he's growing some weed. But he's a small scale farmer, so he's enjoying that as well, and he loves spending time there in Mahuba's Kloof. He also does a bit of trout fishing occasionally. He's a very interesting man. He's no one dimensional person now, Tito Mboweni. So I'm sad that he's not around in government anymore. But at the same time, the less people we can have on the state payroll, the better. Of course, they're just going to replace him with someone else, of course. But
agreed.
Nice of him to not be suckling
man.
on that seat. Yeah, he is old as well. He was in the Mandela Cup.
Dude.
Like, he was in the Mandela government. He was Minister of Labour back in 1994. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, let them go. All of them, let them go.
Bafana was still good at soccer when he started. Imagine how long ago that is. Yeah.
It's been a hot minute. Nah, he's finna leave and just cook and farm and fish. He's tired.
It's the way to go. I don't think that's such a bad future to look for. Farming, fishing, and cooking. That sounds like a good way to spend your time. All right, it is 7:00. When we come back, we've got a bunch of things lined up for you, including This Is Us with Bonang Mohale, who we had last week, but we recorded a proper interview with Bonang and me and Lebang on when was it? Thursday that we did that? Yeah, Thursday.
Yeah.
with him. So he's back, and this time we won't have any technological issues, hopefully, to get in the way. So that we'll come back with that in a moment or two. Also, a bunch of other stuff, and let us know what your comments are. And as usual, like, subscribe, etc., etc. Please, you know how those things matter. Otherwise, the YouTube algorithm gives us bullshit. So,
I love how it's always an enema for you.
Dude,
like every
it's like
time
a throwaway.
it gets me.
Like,
Yeah.
subscribe. Like, you need to put in like the vavavoom. Like, subscribe, hit the like button. Please follow the channel. You know where to find us every single morning. cliffcentral.com. Thank you guys so much. We love you, subscribers. Come on, convince the audience. Gareth was like, I don't care about this.
You just did a better job than I would do for it. So no,
I got you.
Sorry. I know my strengths and weaknesses. All right. It is Tuesday, the 1st of February.
Yo, I put it like, wow, this that sound. These oaks don't work hard like me. I hope they know by now.
Just because it's about technology, connecting your business to the rest of the world doesn't mean you need to send rockets to space and use complicated solutions. Want to simplicate things? Well, join Jaco Voigt, who is the CEO of Catalytic, on the Unbundled podcast. With skin in the game and a keen focus on educating and assisting you and your business, Jaco decodes all the aspects of connectivity, security, and cloud solutions. Unbundled is brought to you by Catalytic and is available on cliffcentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Yebo. All right, it is Tuesday morning. We've got Mbulelo and Lebang here, and we're busy keeping company for the start of your day. There's lots going on. Someone says, Mbulelo's voice is back. Robin says, you sounded like you put your vocal cords through a cheese grater yesterday. So Robin's glad that your voice is back. And how is your blood clot, Gareth? Well, I had this bloodshot eye, and it's still there, but it's much better. So I obviously am not going to die of Ebola. So that's very good news.
Yeah, you don't look like a monster today. You look like an absolute. I was like, ah!
Thank God.
You know, I heard the women. I saw on Twitter the women and children were screaming in the streets of Centurion.
Yes, well done. I've made it. I'm no longer Quasimodo, the scary, terrifying.
He's a monster.
It's Speaking of of health issues, I saw this brilliant thing yesterday. I'll put it up on the screen here. 19th century doctor, what you want? Me, just fuck me up, fam. 19th century doctor, say no more. Then there's this one night. Listen, look at this one night cough syrup. I was going to get this for you yesterday, Mbulelo. Each ounce contains, look at this, alcohol, all right, cannabis indica, chloroform, and morphine. Look at this, skillfully combined with a number of other ingredients. And then, you would not survive that stuff in the 20th century. In the 1900s, early 1900s, this is what people were taking for a cough. Scissor, right? That's scissor.
Yeah, that's this is scissor on steroids. Like I'm cool to get sick all the time. If that's what's gonna fix me, bring it on.
My God. One night cough. You know why it's called one night cough syrup? Because you only live one night after you've taken it.
Exactly it.
Jeez. Scary stuff. And people used to, I always wonder about who these people were back in the old days who first tried something, whether it was, those people who first went around picking mushrooms and how many people died when they realized, oh no, those are not the right mushrooms. And then eventually they found the good ones. Or the first person to figure out that cow's milk could be consumed by humans. Because you imagine the first person going around and drinking what came out of some other animal, and how many times that didn't go so well.
Yeah, all the lab rats that we've lost in the trials.
All those
kudos
humans
to them.
Right,
the work that they did for us, so we can have milk.
Right, exactly. Thank God for them. They've prolonged our lives, and they've prolonged our happiness. And so many of them lie dead and buried and are unsung heroes. Here lies Frank. He tried some mushrooms that weren't the good ones. No one ever says that.
No, it's true.
So unfair. It's actually unfair. Frank. They get the worst PR, and they deserve the best PR as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Speaking of PR, I'm so sick of seeing headlines like this. This is such bullshit from that non-paper, The Citizen. I don't know who. Do you know anyone who reads The Citizen?
I didn't know newspapers were still a thing in hard copy, by the way.
Right?
Citizen's got to be one of the worst newspapers in the world, not just in South Africa. But look at this headline. This is this week, right? Because you can see there's the Nadal story from the Australian Open, which is obviously this week. It says anti-vaxxers hold South Africa ransom. In what way? In what way? I haven't heard. Where are these anti-vaxxers holding South Africa ransom? Are you sure? Are you seriously still beating this old horse? Omicron has come along. I'm not going to make too much of a thing about this, but really, I can't believe that a newspaper thinks they can get away with this obvious bullshit. What did the editor?
Who approved
what is the editor?
this?
Is the editor drinking one night cough syrup? For this to be the headline. Do you really think the biggest threat to South Africans at the moment is anti-vaxxers? There's probably only a handful of them anyway to start off with, right? There's not a whole. We don't have a massive protest going on in South Africa at the moment from the anti-vaxxers. Do you see it anywhere? Have I missed something? Do you guys know any anti-vaxxers?
They're probably somewhere in Cape Town or whatever, but it's really not at the top of the list.
And they're not going around protesting actively, are they? So how are these anti-vaxxers exactly holding South Africa ransom? I see that headline and I just want to scream and set fire to a newspaper. It's such bullshit that this is allowed to carry on. Anyway, if you see The Citizen today, then use it to line the bottom of your bird cage or something, because it's the only use that paper has anymore. And I love this cartoon from the New Yorker. There's this woman, and I just love this woman. She looks so ridiculous. She looks like a sad, kind of slightly older than middle-aged woman. And it says wine tasting tour at the top. And then you see her sitting on her sofa in the living room, and she's drinking wine, and she goes, not bad. Then the wine tasting tour moves to the kitchen, and she goes, this one's fine, with a box of wine on the counter. Then she goes to the foyer. She goes, I don't mind this one either. And there's a bottle on the table. So that's what modern society is like a wine tasting tour around your house for people who are sad and lonely.
True.
Oh, shame. You see, if you're a sympathetic or compassionate person, you're like, shame, that poor woman is so lonely. If you're me or Mbulelo, you think it's hilarious. All right, let's get on with it. Sanele says, I'm not labeling. I'm being idiotically simplistic to prove a point your way, since logic clearly defies you. I'm not sure who you're talking to here.
Oh, is there beef in the comment section? I love beefs in the comment section. They're so entertaining. Yeah. They get so riled up.
Yeah, I'm not able to even go back and try to figure out what's going on here. Here's the point with that headline from The Citizen from Gail. She says, what is an anti-vaxxer going to do to me? Throw their pumpkin spice skinny latte at me? I mean, how is an anti-vaxxer?
That sounds delicious.
How is an anti-vaxxer a threat to those of us who have been vaccinated? Unless, of course, you are saying that the vaccine doesn't work. Because if you're saying that, then why did you go and get it? That's all there is. It's simple. The simple logical explanation is anti-vaxxers can't hurt you if you have the vax and you believe the vax works. I mean, it's obviously inconsequential what you believe, but the reason you got the vax supposedly is because you believe in it, right?
Yeah.
You think it's going to stop you from going to hospital or having any serious condition. So why are you worried about the anti-vaxxers? It's not like that makes them more contagious or more dangerous. It doesn't. It does nothing. So it's ridiculous. Anyway, this is the kind of stuff that motivates people these days, is to argue about this crap. Have you noticed how, and again, this came up on the show yesterday, like everybody separates into camps now. It used to be that we could have different opinions about things like Neil Young and Joe Rogan and vaccines. Now you can't have those opinions, because if you do, you might not be able to sit at the dinner table with family members and have a decent conversation. You'd have to just start fighting straight away. That's what happens. And we're not going down that path again this morning. There are other stories in the news too, but I want to get to something Lebang brought up. Lebang, I don't know if this is something that's recently happened to you or it's just something you've been musing about, but a funeral in the hood versus a funeral in the burbs, there's apparently a major, major difference if you're the person organizing it. So are you organizing this at the moment?
Yeah, unfortunately, my best friend lost her dad to cancer on Saturday. So I've just been assisting them, being sympathetic, trying to help out. And we've just been noticing some major differences with how funerals are usually organized when we're in the township. And now we're in the suburbs in a golf estate. And there's just so many rules and there's so much red tape. And simple things like we'd like to get a tent, and erect a tent in the street in front of the house. In the township, that's just something you just, go knock on the doors of your neighbor and let them know that, hey, this is what we're doing. And if anything, they're already a part of the organizing. So they're already on board and it's done. If anything, maybe they sign a petition, you send that to JMPD, and it's done. In this golf estate, you have to call that person and email that person, and the head of what will let you know, and just know that it's a flat no. You cannot erect a tent in front of the street because you're obstructing traffic. It's not going to happen. Cool. I get it. I get it. And then there's things the more traditional stuff, okay, cool, we want to slaughter a goat because it's what we do, right? Oh no, this golf estate is not even gonna hear it. They don't want to even entertain the idea of blood being shed on their land. How dare you? It's just crazy. And little things like your neighbors really coming together and assisting and participating in this whole ordeal and trying to relieve you of all the stress. Again, non-existent. It's just something I noticed yesterday. I just stood there and I looked around and I'm like, yeah, look, we are in a different world here.
What do you? Bolelo's already shaking his head at the idea that someone can erect a tent in the street.
Man. No, not in an estate. Hey, this whole redemption tour of black people. Yes, that's man. Whoa. You see that whole thing already? Hey. Whoa.
Redemption tour.
Whoa. No. This thing of we should be able to do what we want everywhere. This is why I always tell people we need each other. It's why I love living in an area with lots of Jewish people. They don't talk to each other. They don't want to talk to me. My road's clean. And there's no malarkey. And I love you black people, but there's some things that we need to tighten up on. The lack of thoughtfulness that and I'm really lucky. My family is rural, so I don't have any people in the hood. It was straight rural to the birds, right?
Yeah.
Nobody brought that stuff here in my family where there's expectations. We're in Braunston now. No. You leave that emakaya. We can't do that here. We can't be in
I
Dainford.
feel
Imagine my
so-
dad.
So
Imagine my
sorry for
dad
you,
stabbing a
Bonello.
cow. Now we in Dainford and there's Ernie else playing golf. Nah,
Yeah, dude. It's a family tradition. So we must just not apply our family traditions because Dainford says so.
No, but that's crazy what you're saying. You see this absolute permissivity. It's like I'm going to complain when I go to Denmark that I can't take my traditions with me. And I see this all the time now, right? The global world does this. Like, why can't I bring my beliefs here? No. That's not how the world works. You're welcome to do what you do there. So, I mean, Lebang, now, man,
Dude,
you want to be
listen.
bringing...
Lale. What I'm saying is there's a true unique ability for Black people to come together during these times, especially where the family doesn't have to bear this burden by themselves. That I believe when you strip away certain things like you can't erect a tent and no, you can't just have, the neighbors don't just come and assist to cook. The neighbors don't just come and offer scones. It's almost like life kind of just goes on for them. And sure, I get it, but you lose that thing. And I guess it's just new to me because I've just been going all my life. I've been going to funerals in the hood, and guys, it's swift. You get there, every single auntie on the road is cooking. Every single uncle on the road is out there doing something. Everybody's involved. Now it's like you are actually on your own. It's weird.
So you have to sacrifice some things to get other things. So I'm hearing a little bit of what you're saying and what Bolelo's saying. You're being all nostalgic about how, the whole community comes together and in the hood. That's because they had to. It's not because they wanted to. This is like this is behavior that was learned in the townships because there was no one else you could rely on. I mean, there was, there's no help from anywhere else. So everybody had to get together. And it's also how people kind of would commune. That's where the word community comes from. But if you're going to live in an estate, then you get certain things in return for that. And certain things are better than the township, which is why you move into an estate. But you have to leave certain things behind. You can't have everything everywhere you go unless you're rich enough to have a property so big that you can put a tent up in your property. You can sacrifice animals because you have, neighbors who are far enough away that they won't even know what's going on. But once it's like imagine white people going into the hood, and I say white people, but it could be just suburb people. It could be someone like Bolelo going into the hood and then demanding that everybody please stay off the road at night because he's trying to sleep or whatever.
Oh no.
So we've got
Bolelo will not set foot in the hood.
Well, you don't know. I mean, maybe he would, but he wouldn't want to live there.
No. I wouldn't go to four ways. I don't even go to four ways.
He has
I don't even go to four ways. I don't even go to four ways. But point taken, Gareth.
Yeah.
No, Gareth, I hear you, man. I hear you in that perhaps it wasn't a choice. But even in that it wasn't a choice, I guess I'm trying to say that, people made the best out of it and they tried to find the good in the shitty situations that they were given. And maybe it is time to just kind of like move on and keep it moving, but it's different. It's different. I think my generation of peers, as our parents get older and as we now have to learn how to do these things and organize these big gatherings that we've never had to before, things are going to be extremely, extremely different. So it's
sorry, Gareth. I just want to I think there's an opportunity here. Let's not throw the baby out of the bathwater again, because we're obviously living in Nelson Mandela, South Africa now. Craig, Nandi, bro, I'm dating a black chick, blah, blah, blah. Just be aware that when you go to black funerals, the grating of carrots starts on about Wednesday and only stops on Sunday morning. So that's a real thing. Because what I love about suburb and white folks, they've taught us a lot. We can teach you some stuff. One day wedding. There's a 1 day wedding, 1 day funeral. Bury under the ground.
Yeah, but what about Tidising? What about the pre-funeral or pre-wedding when you come in and offer your condolences so you're saying none of that?
And it doesn't actually exist in my family.
So new to me.
Yeah. Let's bury, like I told you, my mom said she doesn't go to black church anymore. And my mom is as rural as it gets. Do not let the degree fool you. She said, I go with white people now. When they say 10 o'clock, siyatandaza. 11 o'clock, I'm at home listening to my gospel. Black people.
But Mbulelo, you're the same person that takes your own coffee to people's houses and says no to whatever they offer 100%,
you. Because they drink absolute tosh, 100%. I do take my own coffee everywhere.
Yeah, I feel extremely sorry for you.
So Heinz says there's a solution to this. If you live in the suburbs, you have to rent a public hall and have your funeral or your party there. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I can't say that the bad outweighs the good in a situation where you're in an estate or in a suburb, because the reason people are moving into those places rather than moving in droves into the hood is because they want to live in a certain way. So there's already a movement. It's always like I say, for example, no one is getting in a boat in Florida and going to live in Cuba. People are getting into a boat in Cuba and going to live in Florida. There's a reason for that. Like they can see there's more opportunity, there's a better life, there's kind of the stuff that you would want to happen around you in a neighborhood where you feel catered to and looked after. And I think that's probably what's going on in this situation. So you have to give something up, and you have to expect other things to replace that thing you've given up. But you can't have
100%. We can't have it all. If anything, in their defense, the Gulf Estates has been very, very kind to us, because we've been living there all our lives. My friend's family practically has been living there for 30 years. It's not like it's a new family.
Right.
So we just kind of spoke to them. They've given us the clubhouse, they're letting us do our thing. So yes, they are giving us leeway for certain things.
It's also awkward. It's very awkward for Kathy, because she's really thinking, these people
this is going to be a bad look for them if they say no.
Yeah, she can't she can't actually apply the rules.
God, if I say no to them, then they're going to call me a racist.
Yeah, and I'm not racist. I mean, I've known Timber my whole life, and now.
Hey man, look, however they feel, that's for them. As long as we can do what we need to do, it's all good.
Crazy.
I've got to also say, and Corona's Boring has hinted at this already, the Muslims and the Jews, because they both get it done in a day. It's quick, man. And it allows you there's closure. Everybody comes for the funeral if you can make it. If you can't make it, too bad. Sometimes they'll delay it if they're international people coming. But usually, person dies, next day they're in the ground, we move on. I like that. I like that a lot. That makes a lot of sense. You can always go and visit the family afterwards. This is how it happens in Muslim and Jewish homes, is you go and spend some time with the family, and everybody takes food, and you get to sit and talk and all of that stuff. But that's the week after. But the funeral, straight away, boom, done. It's
and
there's no delay. Like all these people in the white Western world who are not Jewish and Muslim, it's like, oh no, we'll have the funeral in a week or two, and then there's this gap between, and you don't get the closure, and you know what I mean. It's much more elegant to just get it thrown into the ground and get on with it. Let's move.
And Lebang didn't tell the estate people another thing that black people do. I know, because it was always our house here in, I don't know what estate, but the thing is, your family doesn't leave for 2 weeks as well. They eat you out of house and home, and they're still making a noise for a week. And I'm not kidding. That's a real thing. They're sleeping in every room in your house. It's still early morning. It's still prayer sessions. It's still loud music.
And it really softens the blow of the fact that you've just lost the head of house. It makes it all feel, we've all come together. Sure, the estate may not agree, but look, I guess every culture has their own way of doing things. And what I'm saying, and what I've identified in the past couple of days, is that with more black people getting into the middle class, or whatever the case, things are changing, and how we approach these things is being shifted. It really, really is. And that's also okay. If we have to keep up with the times and keep up with the changes, it's not a complaint. It's just something that I've noticed. And hey man, it is what it is. Just at least let us slaughter,
Exactly right. That is exactly right. And you know what? There isn't necessarily a right or a wrong here. It's just interesting to see how everybody does it and compare notes. Yeah, it's very, very cool. So in a little while, a couple of minutes actually, just a few minutes from now, I'm going to let you in on a discussion that Lebang and I had with Bonang Mohale of Business Unity South Africa, BUSA, and really the work that we wanted to talk to him about this time last week, but we had so many technical issues because he was in a place where the internet connection wasn't so great. He agreed to come in. He's a busy man. Agreed to come in and sit and talk to us. So we go over some of the stuff that you may have heard on Tuesday, frustrating as it was, but we go over some new stuff as well. And he's been very vocal. He was on the news yesterday, I saw, talking about how there are indications that because our government is so bad at what they do, that you could consider South Africa a failed state in some ways. And he's not mincing his words, Bonang Mohale. He really does tell it exactly as it is and as he sees it. And he's representing, remember, not just one man and his opinions. He's talking from the point of view of like 55 different organizations that all form Business Unity South Africa. BUSA, and they're a very powerful organization. They have a seat at NEDLAC. They're, among other things, representing all these organizations, from mining, the old Chamber of Commerce. There are small businesses represented in there, the banking sector, the mining sector. Everybody's in there. So you really have to take everything he says and consider that it's reaching the ears of the people who matter, both locally and internationally. So I think that there's some interesting stuff to be discussed there, and we will get into all of that with Bonang Mohale in just a little while. Freedom Fighter says, on your question, Lebang, just invite the neighbors to the gathering and let's unite. We may find it just fine. Well, that's always a solution, but sometimes they don't want to come, I mean, maybe you don't want the neighbors there either. Maybe they're not the people. You're just inviting them so that they don't complain about the thing, and then they stand around. Urweshi says, Hindus also have the funeral shortly after death, day or two max. Yeah, I like that.
Fantastic.
That's a good way of doing things. Daniela says, what about sitting Shiva? Yes, Jewish people get buried quick, but it's a week of people coming in and out, prayers at sunset. Yes, but that's fine. I'm just saying the actual funeral is to the point and very short and sharp, and it all happens. So yes, very, very good. So let's get into it. Let's do This Is Us for this morning. This morning featuring none other than Bonang Mohale and me and Lebang. And you can get to hear all of this on cliffcentral.com. Remember, as always, the best thing to do if you don't have time to listen to it live is to just pick up on the podcast. And there's plenty of other good stuff in the podcasts too. In fact, we've been doing This Is Us now for a couple of months, and there are some really interesting interviews and discussions. Also, don't forget Life with Lebang every Thursday from 9 to 10, where she includes the stories of some of the people who will make the whole This Is Us story that much clearer to you if you haven't been a part of that journey with us so far. So here he is, Bonang Mohale and cliffcentral.com, along with This Is Us this morning, letting you in on all the stuff that's going on. It is time for This Is Us. And this week, Lebang, Hosana, and I are going to take some time to find real solutions as to how we can make South Africa an amazing place. We believe it's an amazing place. We believe in this country. We have lots to be very proud of in South Africa, but we have enormous challenges. And each of those challenges creates an opportunity. And part of the reason that we are doing this is because we want to find those solutions by talking to the good and the great and the people who've spent an enormous amount of time and energy trying to find those solutions. We have such a person here today. His name, of course, is well known to many South Africans, but just in case you weren't paying attention, or you were asleep under a rock, or you've been comatose for a long time, Professor Bonang Mohale is the Chancellor of the University of the Free State. He's also a Professor of Practice at the Johannesburg Business School, Chairman of both the Bidvest Group Limited and SBV Services. He's the President of Business Unity South Africa, which is an enormous and powerful organization that has representation at NEDLAC, no less. He's also the CEO, formerly, of Business Leadership South Africa and the past president of the Black Management Forum. His new book is called Behold the Turtle, and it is a great pleasure. Prof. Bonang.
Actually, it means the same thing, ironically. So you're lucky. Bonang, Lebang, it's the same thing.
So, Bonang, it's very good to see you again, sir.
Thank you for having me, my dear brother, Lebang.
No, so I think the real reason why it's so important for us to have you here today is just to, unpack This Is Us. And This Is Us as a concept post the riots last year that we saw. The country was just all over the place, and KZN and Gauteng were obviously hurt the most. But most importantly, after that, we saw the country coming together. You know, there was this opportunity, and South Africans showed a different side of them. And this is about that. It's about focusing on the good that we can do, focusing on seeing the country come together. And you are one of the people that, I guess, effortlessly does that. So it's important for us to have you here.
And Prof, you know, you're very realistic. You're a man who does the research. You can see the wood for the trees. Your book certainly lays out, and I spoke to you about this briefly last year, some of the chief challenges for South Africa. But I want to start off with a hard question and ask you, in your view, where and how did we fail as a nation to achieve the deeply felt reconciliation? There's no doubt that post-1994, there was an enormous wellspring of moral high ground, of enthusiasm, of patriotism. All of that seems to have dwindled in 27 years. And I want to know what you think the reason for that is.
I genuinely believe that the reason why we have squandered the goodwill, enormous goodwill that was vested in us on the 27th of April 1994, when we ushered in our first democratically elected president, Rolihlahla Nelson Mandela, is that we became greedy. And greed is more than just having enough for yourself. It says you are not satisfied until and unless you are called the first African billionaire in South Africa. Dollars, not just rents. It says you are not satisfied until you see yourself parking 21 cars in your garage or many garages in Sandton because you bought it with ill-gotten gains. It says you're not satisfied until you can show it off. When you go to Tonga and you park a Porsche Cayenne here and you still have an X5M at home. And yet we know that nature says it will look very askance. Scientists will study a monkey that holds all the bananas to itself without sharing with others, because the very survival of that species, the existential challenge they are facing is to be together. Because when they are together, the one on top of the tree can say, I can see the lion approaching. The one at the bottom can say, but there's also a leopard below here. And then the silverbacks can say, when this danger is all done, there are milliefields to our right, we can eat to our satisfaction. And yet human beings have forgotten that notion of Ubuntu. So when you hoard only to yourself, we put you on the cover of Forbes magazine. That's not genuinely human. That's not Ubuntu. So as I end, I think this word called state capture has totally devastated us and the economy. It took out a third out of the national GDP, and state capture is worse than corruption, because corruption is opportunistic, it's incidental. State capture is both systemic and systematic. Cliff.
Sure. So, Prof. Bonang, one of the things that, firstly, I'm a huge fan of the book. It was put in front of me, and I just found myself so captured by it, just not only because of the big words that you use, but funny enough, the relatability. I didn't find myself unable to understand the book altogether. So, one thing I want to know is, why did you go for this particular title? I mean, we know that this is a sequel to your first book, which was Lift As You Rise, Speeches and Thoughts on Leadership, which is very straightforward. But now you said, Behold the Turtle. Why did you go for that title, and why did you write this book in this particular moment in time?
It's an African adage that says in full, behold the turtle, it only makes progress when its neck is stuck out. It says we all begin to die when we are silent about things that genuinely matter. It says, imagine if the good people spend as much time, energy, and effort as the bad guys. Where would you be? It picks up from the late emeritus Mpilo Desmond Tutu, when he says, when you choose neutrality, actually you choose the side of the oppressor. Therefore, imagine where the world would be if all of us had no fear of retributions or reprisals, when we feel needed and wanted, when we feel free to speak our mind. So behold, the title says, is it possible that Africa can be ethically principled leadership? Which sounds tautologous, because ethical leadership can't be anything else other than ethical. But for emphasis, we say ethical leadership, as opposed to those who call themselves our leaders. And this is where I think they got wrong, and we got it wrong. Because they spent 27 years in Robben Island, we actually thought that they're incorrigible, therefore incorruptible. And yet our brethren and compatriots in the rest of the continent told us, hey, South Africa, wait, you haven't learned out of the other 54 African countries, starting from Ghana that became free in 1957. Because 3 things you need to learn. One is that these Uhuru presidents that stay in power for 40 odd years are not good for Africans. Secondly, they said, even the good guys left on their own eventually become the bad guys. Lastly, it says you need a robust, viable opposition to keep the good guys in check. Therefore, the arrogance, the impunity of this ANC-led government stems from that. Some of them even articulated it to say, no, don't worry, we'll eat as much as we want, like pigs feeding from the trough, because we'll rule until Jesus come. And did Jesus come quickly?
We're still waiting.
Well, I mean, in the meantime, Lebang refers to your book, and she says that she found it, really, really thoughtful, and you did say the word, it was accessible to you as
relatable,
well. Relatable. But there's something else about your book, and there's something else about all the speeches, and I've seen you make many speeches at various events where all the good and the great and the glorious are seated there listening to you, and they listen very carefully to what you say, because there's another aspect to what you do, and you do this in the book, is you confront the problems head on. You're not trying to obfuscate. You've obviously been in business for a long time. You've also been in academia. You're not the kind of person who turns a blind eye to things. If something is true, you address it. That's very difficult. Most politicians aren't capable of that, and thank God you're not a politician. But Prof, we have to own up to some serious problems, and you've already outlined what state capture has done to us. But there are many other things that we can start to do to right the wrongs of the last 27 years, because those 27 years should have been spent righting the wrongs of the previous administrations. The regime that came before, which did us all this enormous disservice. So what do you think we can do as ordinary citizens now? What can Lebang and me and everybody else who's listening to this do now to be a part of the solution?
Because we are in the throes of the lowest levels of confidence, trust, and hope since the Second World War, I think we need to start by reminding ourselves that we were once good. We were once global. We were excellent. We took the Department of Finance expenditure and created a revenue service called SARS that became amongst the top 5 in the world. We had men and women in national treasury that could pound for pound stand with other national treasuries anywhere else in the world.
In fact, we ran at a surplus when we had a president called Thabo Mbeki and a minister of finance called Trevor Manuel, did we not?
The longest serving finance minister. In fact, President Thabo Mbeki, we say he served 5 plus 5. We forget that he served the 3 of Rolihlahla Nelson Mandela's 5-year term, because he was really in charge. And he gave us 43 consecutive quarters of positive GDP growth. And when that happened, we reached the zenith, which was 5.6% GDP growth in December of 2007. And ever since then, we have never touched those levels again. So I think what really needs to be done, let me start with the good news, to remind ourselves that we are really God's own children. This is God's own country, blue skies, African sunshine. There's things that we've been able to do in the midst of the 9 wasted years. Just now, with the almost 4 years that President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa has been in office, but not yet in power, one, SAA has been semi-privatized. Those who from labor must listen to the words carefully, privatized, because privatization is not a swear word. Secondly, municipalities can now procure electricity from sources other than Eskom. Thirdly, even companies can now self-generate their own electricity up to 100 megawatts. When before then it was 1, and we were praying for 5, and he gave us 100. He needs to remember the decision he took against his own party and move ahead with confidence, because he's on the right path. Lastly, Transnets, and in particular the Durban port, is the third from the bottom. Now the whole of which is the backbone of our infrastructure, now accept this notion of public-private partnerships. And it says, private sector, come and show us your expertise, invest your own hard-earned money, for which you will get your own internal rate of return, but also return on investment. You know why? Because the private sector is the only one that can deliver this notion called project management, deliver mega projects on time, on budget, and in full. When governments all over, including this government, Midupi, Kusile, Inguli, from the new multi-product pipeline, budgeted at 7 billion, landed and finally delivered 4 times the duration at 27 billion. Midupi was 30 billion, it went to 54 billion. And the sin there was the ANC-led government had its own private company, Chancellor House, that owned a stake in Hitachi that was providing the boilers. So 20% of 30 billion is also okay, but 20% of 54 billion. So you can see that there was a perverse incentive, especially a party that can pay its own employees at Lituli House that used to have close to 400 MPs in 1994. Now the last, not the 1st of November 2021 local government elections, but the very first, where they got probably 51.6%. When you get that, you retrench the stuff that you had, that you thought was going to rule until Jesus came. They kept all of them. Now they stopped paying them October, November, December. That's why the hurry, the urgency to sign this contract with PRASA so that they can lease these trains, even though there are no tracks on which it will run. There is no electricity overhead. But as long as we sign the contract, we give them tenants, whatever it is, we can bank the 200 million, which is a bribe. Then it allows us to go and pay. So when we thought that state capture went with former President Jacob Zuma, I think South Africans, let's wake up and realize that state capture is still happening as we speak. We saw that with PPE. We saw that with the announcement of the 500 billion South African rands socio-economic stimulus as a response to the pandemic.
You know, Bonang, the fact that you've been at Business Unity South Africa and that it represents such an enormous swathe of our economy, and there are all kinds of organizations that are represented in BUSA. Business is very often portrayed as the villain in many of the stories. You know, it suits government to say, we may be corrupt, but look, business is also corrupt. And of course, you know, the one hand does wash the other, and if those hands are both dirty, then they both get dirty. You know, if one of them is dirty, they both get dirty. But basically, business is a force just like government when used properly for good. It's the central backbone of the economy. Private enterprise is hugely important because it employs people, it creates the value, delivers the products, it makes the whole society work. And small business in particular, which probably isn't as well represented when government come to the table as big business are, have also had to carry the can over these 2 very difficult years of COVID. So how are you feeling business is doing? And do you think it's fair that business is so often cast as an equal villain with government in the state capture stuff?
So it breaks my heart personally. It breaks BUSA's heart as the apex organization of 55 other organizations that the Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's report, number 1 of 3, that came in 3 volumes. The first volume deals rightly with South African Airways and its associated companies. So South African Airways Technical, South African Express Airways, and then of course Air Chefs, the catering company. The second volume deals with the new age. This is amazing vehicle. One of 55 web of intricacies created by the Guptas to obfuscate where the money is going. The third volume deals, of course, with the capture of the South African Revenue Service. It breaks my heart that it's always the few that then taints the rest of us. You need only one rotten potato and the whole bag will be rotten if we don't act. So the companies that were named, and the Zondo Commission report has some choice words for this business. And it talks about Nedbank, it talks about PwC, Standard Bank, and Bain, and others. So we have said to our members who these companies belong to, make sure that you have some critical, courageous, but nonetheless crucial conversations about what happened. They must take you into their confidence. What was their role in aiding and abetting state capture? But most importantly, what do they do to make sure that it doesn't happen again? Because you see, if you're a good CEO, you know that, like Steinhoff, when so much money has been stolen, it's a failure of the system of a company, not one rotten individual. Because alone, you cannot bribe the whole organization.
Right.
You need a whole gang, absolutely a school, so that when you write that invoice, somebody signs it off and the money comes and then another one banks it. So there is nothing more critical in our role as leaders that we can do than, out of the 4 things that we are charged to do, the most critical is culture. When that happens, you need to ask ourselves as a company to say, what type of culture allowed this to happen? The same way that when you talk about what gives us comfort at the board, we say it's the notion of risk management. We say it's the issue of compliance. We say it's group internal audit. And if you are in financial services, we say it's actuarial services. It's like a Swiss cheese model. If it goes through one hole, the second catches it. If it goes through 2, the third, the fourth. That's what makes us sleep at night. Therefore, it's inconceivable that we can say, no. You see, the 2 executives that did the state capture are now gone. We fired them. Now we can move on. The good example is Siemens, that was found to have been engaged in things that they shouldn't in 2006, 15 years ago. They've gone through a 10-year process to say, how do we change the culture where every single soul to one of our employees feel free to speak their mind? How do we post everywhere, in the loos, in the photocopy machines, to say, actually, we encourage you, when you see something, please phone this number. You can be anonymous. But the culture that says, this is as much your company as it belongs to Siemens. So when you steal from it, even if it's a photocopying paper, is the culture that we don't want.
Yeah.
We look at our systems and processes to see that they've happened. You know, as I conclude, there are 4 other critical things that you do as a good CEO, not just a CEO. This is the stuff of leadership. Number 1 is you put your people first. The ANC leaders have put themselves first.
Yeah.
They don't mind stealing PPE to the value of 2/3 of the 500 billion. In Gauteng, we know that 2/3 went to 127 companies that were created on the 29th of March, when this was going to be the effective on the 1st of April. So you can see it was well thought out, agitated, and orchestrated. The second one is this notion of HSSE. And again, it deals with people as an acronym for health, safety, security, and environment. The third, it's reputation management. Because if you lose that, it's very difficult to regain it. You lose it in 20 seconds, it takes you 20 years to build it back. And Siemens understands that. The last, of course, is stakeholder management. How you engage, interact, and interface with anybody that is likely to have an impact on your business. Those are called your stakeholders. So of all those things, we need to go back and say, as business, we have lost our reputation, we have lost our integrity, and we have lost, in fact, our own credibility, which we had worked so hard to build up from the Yes campaign. We had worked hard during the Business Trust, where we raised R1 billion. We had lost it when we created the RDP fund to say we're going to focus on tourism and the training related to tourism. We have lost that goodwill that we built by creating the Solidarity Fund, 5 billion pledged. After only a week, we banked 2.3 billion and we used it for the vaccine rollout to manage this pandemic. All that good work now taints all of us with a bad brush. So we will have to redouble our efforts, work that much harder, because, as I conclude, when business does well, society generally does well. Business cannot continue to be an island of poverty, of prosperity in a sea of poverty. Right. You can't live in Alexander, 2 kilometers away from the richest square mile in the continent, and you walk there every day, and yet your immediate supervisor and the bosses have never been to Alexander, and they claim to love you, because there's an African adage that says you have to love your people in order to lead them.
100%. And this is something you speak about almost in every single chapter in your book, that the value of people, the people you work with, the people you interact with, people is the real currency. And a part of that is living a life of purpose and meaning. Now, this, I was trying to wrap my head around it, because it's easy to sometimes say, you need to live a life of purpose, meaning, and so on and so forth. But if you can't attain it, then it's difficult for you. So how would you advise the average South African out there who's struggling, who's suffering, or whatever the case is, to try their best to live that life of purpose and meaning?
So number one, the reason why you put people first, it's because my grandmother used to say, isn't it funny that those people that wake up in the morning chasing money hardly have any, but those that follow their passion, they make money until it comes out of their ears. Therefore, it was...
Why is that? It seems unfair.
Yes.
It seems so wrong.
Yes. So you have to focus on the right things. So let me come back to the issues of business. We want embarrassingly good results. That's at the pinnacle. But you can't have those unless you build a foundation of trust. Second layer, you invite conflict. Third layer, you commit to action. The fourth layer, you hold people finally accountable. If you do those four in that order, the logical outcome is results. Therefore, if you want to make money, you become Tiger Woods. You play golf even if you are not paid for it, because you do it because you just love it.
Yeah.
So in business, we are taught that you must do what you love and love what you do. Many people come 8 to 5. They absolutely hate the people they work with. As they wake up in the morning, their energy is already dejected. And they come into the office and they exude this. But look at the people that follow their purpose. They say, this company does things that are congruent, that are consistent, that resonate with who I am and my own values. In fact, young people teach us today, they don't go for Coca-Cola and Procter & Gamble and Unilever. They say, I want to work for a company that I can relate to. I choose the company. We are just lucky to have a job. And they look at the supervisor and they say, can this supervisor genuinely, deeply and profoundly connect with me? Because people join companies, but they leave supervisors.
But Prof, even what you're saying now is a deeper social thing than it is just getting a job or working for a company. What you're talking about, these values and this purpose and meaning, where do we teach our young people this? Some of us are fortunate. We've grown up in families where these things are taught to us at an early age. Some of us learn at university or at school, maybe by the wayside. Maybe we have an elder in the family who sits us down and explains to us how things work. But you have this ability to make sense of this and to speak about it with such authority. Where did you learn this, and how do we imbue this into young people?
Because I stood at the knees of amazing, good quality leaders. I have been in the presence of dignified greatness from the black pool of excellence. I've worked with the late Maduke Lot Ndlovu. I have been tutored by Professor Lumkile Wiseman Nkuhlu. I engage, interact, and interface on an ongoing basis with Dr. Ruel Khoza, who is the epitome of ethical leadership. We asked him more than 7 times to be the president of the BMF. Every single time he said, no, I prefer to be in the background. So he's one of the presidents we've never had, but we treat him like one of the people who have actually been our president. He's generous and he gives of himself and what he knows, because he understands that when you give money, you give a lot. When you give time, you give much. But when you give of yourself, you give everything.
Yeah.
And he's given us everything.
And to teach these children, because they don't have access to these amazing people that you have. Some of them may hear this podcast now and hear you, and you may be one of those voices for the next generation. But where can we teach them these things?
So by doing what you are doing, that's why I think what you're doing is truly, genuinely amazing, because it goes to those spaces where it would take us long to touch. But secondly, it's about saying, but we had role models. We lived with them. Now, all of us, when we make money, the first thing we do out of safety, we go to the suburbs. And the ones that remain behind, their role models becomes amakinsa, people who steal cars, the people who rob cash in transit. The guy was broke on Tuesday. Friday, he's buying beers for the whole shebeen, and he's driving a red BMW X5M with white leather. Nobody asks, but Where did you get this? Because we have kind of condoned it. Lastly, here's one that's very profound. The reason why the National Party survived for such a long time, not just the 48 years of apartheid, the 98 years of separate development, the 350 years of colonialism, it's because they expected their leaders to take their own children to the same schools in the ward where they are so that they can pick up when something is wrong. When they were ill, they were expected to go to the same hospitals. And indeed, when somebody jumped the fence, they called the same SAPS. Now what we have is the middle class have discovered medical aid, which is private medical health. They have private security, 550,000 against the SAPS, which is 150,000. They use courier companies, not SAPS. So education, they use private education, Crawford College, Benmore Gardens, instead of going to the public education. As I conclude, I think the way it manifests is where we are now. It's genuinely a spot of bother because we're holding the world record for all the wrong reasons. The most unequal society in the world, the country with the most highest unemployment in the world, the highest SME failure rate in the world. We have the second highest levels of suicide rates after Russia. And I already said, we are the third bottom in terms of just our infrastructure, the port of Durban. And how it manifests is you see, number one, that this inequality is actually increasing and widening. Racism is at an all-time high. But in fact, black graduates are roaming the streets hopelessly.
Or leaving if they can to other countries where they can.
You are
find
the
jobs.
family's only hope. They sold their cattle from Limpopo to take you to the University of Fort Hare or Terfloop. And now you come and you're standing at the street corners with a board that says, I'm a qualified engineer, I did this, and please call this number. So this is hopelessness. But also at the time that public education has collapsed, public health care continue to fail the poor and the vulnerable. But crucial infrastructure is lying in decay, and lawlessness has now become an epidemic. If you rob a bank, you've got an 80% chance of getting away with it. So I think three things we need to do, because all of us collectively have not succeeded in eradicating the legacy of apartheid. Number one, we must grow this economy, because if you don't grow the economy, you'll be talking about the redistribution of poverty, not wealth. Number two, we must create jobs in large numbers. Because when business creates jobs, it's not in and of itself you are creating markets of the future. Lastly, we need to transform. When you go to China, India, and Japan, those economies and those countries look typically Japanese, Chinese, and Indian. Except South Africa looks like an outpost of Europe. Therefore, we must be broadly reflective of the demographics. Women are 51% of the 60.1 million South Africans. Black people are 90% of the population. White people are 8.3% of the population. And yet, when you look at the C-suite, 70% is white male Afrikaners. Women, at the very best, 24% of positions of leadership. African women, 4%. When young people of military age are sitting at home, twiddling their thumbs with nothing to do. Not only are you asking for trouble, you are actually actively inviting it. Thank you for having me. It's been an amazing conversation.
Sure.
Lebang.
There's so many things I want to ask, but the one that's sticking on my mind is this concept of the new normal versus the better normal. I mean, the first thing you said when you walked into the office today was, have you been vaccinated? I mean, the COVID really did, change our lives in that way that now it's just a part of our lives. It's what we do. So please, can you explain this concept of the new normal versus the better normal very quickly?
So the Americans say, how can we build back better? As South Africans, we need to say there's no point in hankering towards a better future or crying about the past that we used to have. It's about saying not really a new normal, but a better normal. Because when your house has burned down, you can build the same house, but actually you're not moving forward. You say, let me take the insurance money, now design the house based on my needs. And the needs of South Africans are simple. They are simply saying the 16 million South Africans that are gainfully employed. and yet 17 million people who are on social security. The math doesn't add up. This is pre-COVID. So when we open up to say we'll give you 350 a month social relief grant, 14 million people apply. We give to 11 million. You add to 17, that's 28 million. And the people who are still paying the bill is 16 million. You can see it's a powder keg. It's a time bomb that is waiting to go off.
Yeah.
There is 10 million young people who are not in education, employment, or training. There is 6 million young people who don't know their father. Only 30% of South African households have both a father and a mother. Therefore, we must accept that we are a troubled, broken people, that the violence of apartheid and the violence of anti-apartheid movement and the violence that we've enjoyed during the black-on-black violence of Inkatha versus ANC in the Kathoras region has left deep and profound scars. To heal those, we begin to look at each other and one another in the eye to say, how do we as a nation give effect to the South Africa of Rolihlahla Nelson Mandela's dreams, to bring about this notion of a South Africa we have all been praying for, of nation building, of social cohesion. Because when we can have 10 rand and we keep 4 for ourselves, we use 6 to lift as we rise the others.
Yes.
We can then sleep at night. I conclude by saying, when your neighbor is hungry, you are the one that can sleep at night.
Very profound. And as always, you are just one of the most inspiring people. Please continue to do the good work that you do and keep writing your books. 2 bestsellers already. And I don't know if that's what you set out to do, but it's certainly something you deserve. Professor Bonang Mohale, and it's a great pleasure to have you on This Is Us today. Thank you.
Thank you.